Welcome, dear listener, to the Right Here, Right Queer podcast. Today I am joined by Katie Edwards. Welcome, and thank you for chatting with me.
Hey, thank you for having me here. Looking forward to it.
So, for readers that are not familiar, what is the tarot sequence?
Sure. The tarot sequence is pretty much describe it as the work of my lifetime. This is the story that I really, really want to tell. I've been taking notes on it for well over about 15 or 20 years at this point, but it's designed to be a 10-book urban fantasy series focusing on the idea of the world as we know it, but reimagining it so that Atlantis always existed. It's a story very close to my heart. It's very heavy themes of found family, queer identity, healing, survival. Very excited about writing the fourth book now I'm on of the series, and I do plan to have six others after it.
And it's like a trilogy of trilogies, right? Originally, I knew it as 9 books, but you say there's going to be 10.
There are going to be 10 now. It's actually, I don't describe it as a trilogy of trilogies anymore because the book I'm working on at present, book four, every book of my series has always had a tentpole theme, like some big thing that I can anchor my notes around when I have them. I'm thinking forward in the future. And for instance, book four is my road trip novel, and it's an incredibly unique plot. It's something that I won't be doing again. I will not be taking my characters out of my home base city and sending them into America for a road trip. And because of that, the note file ended up just being massively chock full of ideas, so full that I realized I had two books, not one book. And so book four is really the road trip proper, where they're mostly focused on them heading through America and making it all the way to an underground sanctuary city run by the Fae. But the second book, which takes place in the Pacific Northwest, will still be in America, but it's less road trip and more Atlantean institutions in America. And it's a huge story. So that instead of thinking this as three books of three, it's now two books of five, actually. What I call the first series, I don't even know if the last five books will be called the Tarot Sequence, but the first five books are really going to hit a high note on book five. So it just ended up nicely that way. So I didn't have to sacrifice my long-term plans, but I gave this book room to breathe.
That's exciting, and I think just by hearing you describe it, that was a good way to split it.
I'm excited about it because I was going to have to cut so much material. My publishers give me a very firm page count and I can't exceed it. So the average novel is about 100,000 words, and I had 85,000 words of brainstorming notes for this book. I would have had to lose so much of that material, and I'm not sure where else it would have ever found a home again. So I feel really good about this. It's an exciting decision for me.
You do have like a lot of bonus content, and I think in the past you've had to like kind of focus yourself down. I'm glad that you didn't have to this time, that you were able to get that fifth book.
Yeah, it happened with the third book where my publisher would not let me exceed a certain page count. So I ended up I called it at points either Tales from New Atlantis or a Magnus Academy book, but it was the story of the teenagers in my novel and what they went through while the main character was off on his adventure. And they had a really huge adventure. And what I'd wanted to do was layer that into the story with four interlude scenes, but I couldn't even add that to the novel. So it ended up getting split out into a novella called The Eidolon. And I'm really glad I did it because it taught me how to self-publish or how to hybrid publish, how to do sort of some partnerships with existing institutions like Audible and the narrator that I'm used to for the tarot sequence, but also owning a piece of my own series, such as the PDF version, and then working with a book service, Rainbow Crate, to do the hardcover. And I created a paperback too. But while the Eidolon was a great adventure, I would have much rather had that material in the book itself. So, the idea that that would have happened again on book four if I hadn't split it out. And that material is really important to me. And it's going to help my series grow with different points of view while still anchoring the series around my main character, Rune. But I'm excited to see what happens now. I saw what happened when I needed to take all that extra material out. And now in book four, I'm going to see what it's like with it in. So.
You've said that this is like urban fantasy. What drew you to that genre? Have you always wanted to do urban fantasy, or?
I don't know if urban fantasy. It certainly wasn't called urban fantasy when I was young. I mean, it's gone through so many titles. I think it started off as like alternate history. It's been called speculative fiction. I call it urban fantasy from the heydays when Laurel Hamilton and Charlene Harris and Patricia Briggs is one of my all-time favorites. Alona Andrews. I mean, the really the greats of urban fantasy really created the genre in I think it was mostly the 2010s. That was a big decade for it. For me, urban fantasy, all it really means is, and I use this term very loosely, I'm not sure other people would agree with me, but take the world as you know it and add supernatural elements into it. If you ask me, Superman is an urban fantasy story. I mean, you've got, a city like we live in, but you throw superheroes in it. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, those are all urban fantasy type stories. And I love the idea of taking the world as we know it, but then adding in the surreal and the abstract and the phenomenal and just making a story that can be filled with mystery, it can be filled with romance, it can be filled with adventure. It's more of a subgenre with all the other genres piled on top of it. The lack of rules have always appealed to me.
The lack of rules. I like that. That's a good way to put it. So, what has it been like writing a long series? Has anything changed since you've begun?
Well, 9 and 10 was a big one. Like going from 9 to 10, it had been 9 books for about 15 years, and I don't envision that happening again because, to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to put myself in a position like this again. I'm under contract for another book and a half, and that'll take me through book 5. But books through 6 through 10, they follow my rules moving forward. Like if I want to add, a glossary, if I want to add a map, if I want to add a few more chapters, I want the ability to do that. I'd like to have more control over when the books are published too, when they drop. So I'm really interested in moving on to that phase. But for right now, at least, every novel itself, like with the big novels, the big moments, the big turning points, they all still remain the same. And I suppose the outline, the number of books I planned, or now that it's 10, it's 10. But I'm lucky that that hasn't changed over time. That the core outline of my series is there. The big thing that changes is my characters. Any writer will tell you when you're actually at the blinking cursor, your characters can take over. I mean, they decide if you're going to zig or you're going to zag. You might think that you're in control, but when you're actually writing the scene, it can just get away from you. And my main characters, especially Rune and Quinn, two characters in particular, they're just notorious for saying, yeah, I know that's what you wanted to do, but we're going to do something that you didn't plan on doing for 3 more novels down the road.
That's their nature.
It's just their nature. Rune is that way. And it keeps me interested and it keeps me fascinated and seeing where the characters are going to go with things. But they do accelerate plot lines all the time. Rune wasn't supposed to become, well, let's call it like king again, the leader of his court until well into what originally was going to be the second trilogy. And here he does it in book 2 in my main series now. I mean, that stuff just happens, and it always happens for a good reason. And I'm always, whether or not I quite understand what that reason is or not, I accommodate it, and I'm always grateful for it. It always makes sense. So that's the thing that does change. And I will say the biggest changes are there sometimes characters that were supposed to die that didn't, and sometimes characters that weren't supposed to die that did. And that changes too, mostly according to the needs of the story. But the big swipes, what I really want to happen, I'm still on track for that, which makes me happy.
So, do you have plans for once the tarot sequence is over, or do you think you'll do like spin-offs even once Rune's story is over, or will you be ready to be done?
I will never be done playing in the Tarot Sequence universe. Never. This is my sandbox. I have Magnus Academy books I want to tell. There's side characters like the Son of the Devil, who I want to tell Wild Hunt stories. I could tell stories 200 years in the future if I want. Atlanteans are a semi-immortal race. There are so many different things I could tell stories in the past. I want to do my own. I call it my gay Bridgerton story. I want to do a gay Bridgerton story with some of my characters who lived through that period of English history. So many different ideas, but I mean I do have other thoughts and other novels, but I'm perfectly happy playing in the sandbox. But my focus is on telling Rune's story, and that's still going to occupy me for years to come. Thank God. But Rune's story is that's my work. That's the work of my life.
I'm glad to hear that as a reader. It's just a wonderful world to be in, and there's so much that you've put down that it would be hard to walk away from it, I imagine.
I really think so too. Especially if like I can explore other parts of the world and other points in history and I could get really fantasy and I could go into the old days of Atlantis, the island of Atlantis, which even I haven't touched much about. In my series, I imagine that when Atlantis finally outed itself to the world and said, "Hey, by the way, we trick or treat, we've always existed." The human world responded by trying to destroy them, and there was a war, and thousands and thousands and millions and billions of damage, thousands of lives, and eventually they had a peace. But Atlantis was diminished by then. The Atlantis homeland was almost destroyed, rendered uninhabitable by a viral contagion. So they've relocated to an island off Massachusetts, and that's where my story is set, on an island I call New Atlantis. They're refugees, essentially refugee status, though they become very powerful in the modern era. But I've never really touched on old Atlantis, and that's a whole wealth of fantasy storytelling right there as well. The nice thing about my story is I don't need to limit myself to, yes, I love playing in my world and I love the rules of my magic, but there are so many different settings and locations that I built into the background that I could easily dive into as well.
That kind of leads me into one of my other questions. You have so many real world locations and historical events and places. Like, what was the research like for all of those?
Oh, it's a joy. I'm one of those people who I love like when those random like urban ruin lists come up on your computer. It's a little bit more different nowadays with like AI algorithm. You never know like what's in your feed for what reasons, but it used to be for a period like I could go out looking and now that stuff seems to come to me. It's just they feed it to me directly, but I would stumble on these articles like top 10, abandoned ruins of the world and I would just be transported. I just loved those visuals of like old amusement parks and asylums and abandoned cities, the area around Chernobyl, like just like what it's become over time when people weren't there. Something about it is history imbued in those places. The what the ruins look like, what they look like at their heyday, when they were live and thriving. Something about it I find fascinating. And the more I went down those rabbit holes, I found myself taking notes. And the next thing I know, I incorporated it into my own world building. And I take it as a challenge whenever I pause to describe one of those things. The challenge is how do I explain this to people in such a way that fascinates them, it doesn't bore them, and it's like a nice, perfect soundbite to put some exposition in.
What makes you want to learn more about those places too? Like, oh, is this an actual real place or is this something he made up? And then you realize, no, it's a real thing and you check it out.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. I just I have a Patreon site that's really important to me. It's like my primary vehicle for connecting with people these days. And I just posted an excerpt from book four and I talked about dawn redwoods. It was a type of redwood that used to flourish across North America in the days of the dinosaurs. It was dying out by the days of when the dinosaurs ended, but it was recently rediscovered in I think on an island in China. And but the like I get to describe like my characters being in awe of looking at this tree that it doesn't look like it exists anymore in the modern world. And I love the fact that a reader immediately said I had to Google it, and it turns out it existed, and started talking about the different elements. And one reader even caught that I said that it existed at the time of giant sloth and saber tooth. Said I don't know if I'm necessarily right. If I am, it was on the tail end of their existence before they kind of died out. But I mean, I just love that stuff, and I love how readers engage with it too.
I saw that and I totally thought it was like a made up thing. And no, apparently it wasn't. It was a real tree. That's cool.
It's fun for me to do that research. I'm a very visual person. Over the last few years, I found myself drifting away from reading books and watching more TV. The pandemic did something to me, and I haven't quite undone it yet. I miss reading books. I used to read every day of the week. Now it's more often that I end my day watching TV, but I do watch international TV. I watch things that I've never watched, growing up in America when you just had, when I was growing up, three channels to choose from. So to watch shows that are set in these incredible settings across the world, there's something about it which is definitely translating into my writing. And, that's one of the things I love being able to see something and describe it in words in an engaging manner so that other people are get interested and want to look into it themselves.
Is there like a rhyme or a reason as to why certain people or the houses have certain like origins or heritage?
No, I don't think so. Other than that's more of a creative mechanism, I think, than a really well thought out sociological mechanism. I tried to make each house very distinct and surreal with their own sort of warped identity, only loosely based in the tarot cards. A lot of people say that, well, your hangman represented the hangman card. It did not represent the hangman card. It was more like the card represents the story. And in some cases, I do reversed readings if you know anything about tarot sequence or tarot cards.
Well, and the hangman to me, that does read as the whole book because it's looking at things from a new perspective.
Very much so. You put your finger on it exactly. That's exactly what I intended by the hangman. It was the change element, the change catalyst.
So you do have a huge cast and they are all very diverse. What's it like managing them all? Do you have one of them cork boards with a million different red string or, what's it like trying to manage all of them?
I've got to say I'm really lucky about that so far. I do not need to do that. Every now and then, like I'll have to remind myself what their ages are or something very finicky like that to make sure that I'm staying true to their development as well. But for the most part, they live and breathe in my head. I mean, I just know them so well. Like, for instance, the Hourglass Throne came out, God, I don't even want to know, 3 years ago. And it's been a 3 year wait for me to work towards the end of book four. But that doesn't mean I haven't been working on my series. And it doesn't mean I've just been working on the novel I'm working on. The entire time I'm enriching the entire series. So they're in my head every single day. Every day I'm taking brainstorming notes, and it could be a Max scene, could be an Anna scene. Most likely it's a Rune and Brand and Adam scene. So in a way, it's like they're friends. I don't know else how to describe it. I'm very fortunate. I'm definitely at that age where my memory's going. You just saw it. Like I'll find myself talking and be like, God damn, or where did I start? Where was point A? But I've never forgot the characters and their development and who they are. They're just so whole in my head. I'm very grateful for that.
No, what about the characters? You've paid a lot of due diligence to those with disability or different identities, like one of the St. Bridget children, and we got a new character, Tavis, coming up. What has it been like trying to write those characters?
Tavis is the first character, one of what I would call like a main secondary character, like a Max or an Anna. They're not necessarily the Rune and the Brand, which are the core characters. Adam too, for the most part, but they're a strong side character, and Tavis will be one of those. And he does have a pronounced disability, and it's difficult for me because I want to try so hard to represent it well. I want to be authentic. I want to show the survival and the strength. And Tavis believes he's exactly the way he should be. He doesn't view his disability as a disability. If anything, he thinks he would have been too perfect if he hadn't had challenges in his life. He wasn't born with a disability. He had a bad accident when he was very young, and it's informed most of his life. But I'm looking forward to get to the point where I bring beta readers in, because I really do need some beta readers with experience in this type of disability. He uses forearm crutches, and it's not enough just to have a character with forearm crutches. I want to understand the nuances and the little quirks about it, and the meaningful things that someone who actually lives that life would be able to point a finger at it and say, "You saw me, you got me." I mean, like that's it. That's what I go through. So, but we'll see. I mean, I just try so hard to make sure that that representation is authentic. I wasn't that way in the beginning of my series. I thought I was because I had a lot of gay characters, gay white males. But then it turns out that queer identities, the spectrum is much broader and much more rich. And when I started listening to my readers about authentic representation, it made a difference for me as a human being, and that certainly translated into me as a writer. I think a lot of people noticed that between the first and the second book, I started catching on that, whoa, I am not treating my women well in my series. Like, I'm treating them not well at all. And I really, out of anything, I think my journey on what it means to be an ally for feminism has been a significant part of my career as a writer. And I'm trying so hard to represent that authentically and well, and with all the respect and love in the world in my series. But it's hard sometimes. I mean, I'm in my 50s, and I grew up in a time in America that's much different from where we are. Well, I would have said that about a year ago. Unfortunately, America is going through some identity crises of its own right now, but it makes me sad to think that some of the lessons I learned 30 years ago were being pushed back into learning again. But anyway, there you have it. I do believe that representation is important in my series, because I've made it such a priority of interacting with my readers and making them a part of what I do and feeling like this is part of a community. So I want them to get that from the series. I want them to feel like that mirror is there for them as well.
And I think so many people think writing is a solitary activity, and it can be, but I feel like to truly reach, especially when you have a big, diverse cast like this, you have to kind of open up and let a community in and get their feedback. And it sounds like you've definitely been doing that. And I think it does provide like teaching moments, and it improves your writing.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that your audience would be a factor of being a writing. I mean, of course they are, but I never thought that they would be so integral to the process itself. That I would create this community, that I want them involved in it. I like when they help me name certain characters, or, before the Hangman was written, I remember throwing out an idea of, like, I need a monster, give me a monster, guys. And I made it a contest, and the person who picked the Ifrit, I ended up putting an acknowledgement. It's like, I love that. There's something about that that's just so empowering. And I write because I like escaping the world. The world can be hard. It can be, well, reality can be hard. I love escapist fiction. I like heading out on a horse, or flying through clouds, or diving through the ocean, or these places that books can take me that reality can't. And I want to share that with other people. I want to give them a break from their life, because life is hard. We're going through a lot right now in a country, and I think it's more important than ever that we have stories that reaffirm our humanity and our decency. And I might have dark elements in my story, and my characters might be besieged by problems, but man, do they have their backs together. They're in a circle, and they've got each other's backs. They are a found family, and I love celebrating that. I love sharing that vibe with my readers, and I love that my readers respond to that vibe. So I don't think every writer is this way, the level of interaction with the readers and the idea of sharing the community with them, but it works for me. I mean, it works for the type of story I'm telling.
You do frequent like a lot of in-person events. You do like Dragon Con and you have your Patreon and like you said, you're very open when it comes to discussing your books. Does it ever get overwhelming having such a dedicated fan base, or what is it like?
They're not overwhelming me. My guess of their expectations is overwhelming me sometimes. I wish I could write quicker, and I'm constantly feeling like I'm letting my readers down, even though I'm not. Most readers, not all, but most readers are incredibly supportive about me taking the time I need to tell the story the way I want to. And they know I'm close to the end. I mean, this isn't going to be a lifelong journey to get book four out. I really want to finish it soon, very soon. But I guess I could say that the most difficult thing recently, if I had to give an example of sharing, would be I'm very clear with my readers about it's been a 3 year gap since the last book, and I'm really struggling with that. The pandemic changed me, and I haven't quite figured out how. The Hourglass Throne was written at the tail end of the pandemic, and the pandemic featured in it, but it was already kind of done by that point. But that entire experience of what we went through, it changed me as a person. It changed the way that I look at writing, and I'm still working through that. In some ways, it's improved it. The last 5 chapters I've written, I think, are the best I've ever done in my entire life, to the point where I'm going to have to go back to the first 5 chapters of this book at the point I'm at now and do some polishing. And that's great. I love that. But the fact is, you're talking about sharing with readers. And recently I had to explain why did it take me 3 years. And I said, I did finally get to the point where I started with therapy. And I shared with readers that this is my journey. I never thought I would be someone in therapy. That wasn't promoted when I was growing up. It wasn't a vehicle that most people had access to. It's certainly different now. But when, again, my foundational years, my impression was formed. And I always thought therapy would be one of those things where it would get so much worse before it gets better. Turns out to be a joy. The therapist I have is an absolute joy. It's been full of healing and realizations of how on a daily basis I just kind of might beat myself down. But to talk about this and share it with my readers, that was a big step for me. I almost wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but I've kind of made a point of being transparent with my readers, letting them know when I stumble and when I succeed. I mean, if they're going to share the good stuff, then maybe it's okay they share the bad stuff too.
Absolutely. You're one of the most engaged authors I know, and I think that's why fans enjoy it so much. I'm in the one of the Discord servers, and just everyone I can tell you, very understanding of the time, and they are absolutely feeding on anything and everything, and they're more than happy to read the books over and over again. And that's just, I don't know, I've never really seen anything quite like it. So whatever you're doing, it's the right thing. And I think it is important to show the good and the bad because you're only human.
I love that. And the next book is written for those people, by the way, the Discord people who've read the books over and over and who keep like the audiobook in their car and they listen to it over and over. Like that stuns me. I know that like when I read a book more than once, it means something. Like I do not like rereading stuff. I do not like rewatching stuff. If I do rewatch and if I do reread, it's a mark of high praise from me. For people to do that for my series, that just means the world. And the next book is written for them. I told you it started off with an outline of 85,000 words, and about 75% of them are all brand one-liners and jokes about road trips. And this is meant to be the book where you really Rune and his family have been beat up so much in the last 3 books, and the third book in particular ends really kind of heartbreaking. It ends with a lot of hope, and they're together and they've gone through it as a family, but there's been some loss too. And one of the things I've been very clear about with my series is this is about a survivor. I mean, Rune has a traumatic past. He was sexually assaulted when he was younger. The fact is, I always wanted to honestly look that in the face and talk not about the grimness about what happened, but about the beauty of him being a survivor. And especially when he starts out, he's not necessarily surviving that well at the beginning of the series, but by book 3 and 4, he has his found family around him. I'm really loving seeing them all open up, to see Brand open up as a character, to see Rune open up as a character. It just means so much to me to get that element down. And book 4 is about that healing journey. It's about the comedy. It's about shoving the entire family into 2 luxury RVs and driving them across America. I mean, I want the adventure to be there, and certainly by the last third of the novel, I'm back to my core endgame rush. But I really do want there to be a lot of these elements that people would want, like they take pleasure in rereading it again and again because it's just filled with those moments of them just being together and surviving what they've survived.
Being a family.
Yeah, and again, to layer in the adventure, and I'm really building up for a big book in novel 5. Novel 5 is going to be huge. There's some things that happen which it's like a series finale. It doesn't even feel like the midpoint of a series. It's so big that I do think the first 5 books are going to end up being their own series. and the last 5 books will go under a different title.
Do you have a favorite book out of ones you've already written?
I think that The Hangman has a big place in my heart, just because after I wrote The Last Son, that was when I made the decision as a writer to read what, like I've read every review in Goodreads, every review on Amazon. So many writers will tell you never read reviews. What are you doing? Are you insane? I've actually been relatively gifted with the reviews I've gotten because, sure, there are the reviews where people hate what you did, but there are so many reviews where people loved what I did. And then there were the reviews where people gave you like 3, 4 stars and they said, I love this book, but dot dot dot. And then they explained what they didn't like. And that was the decision I made when I read those reviews. And I'm like, oh my God, they're right. Look at the way I've treated women in the first. I'm so embarrassed with some of the phrasing I used in my first novel. I'm very honest about that. And I really took heart to that. And I tried so much hard to be more, I don't want to say, not inclusive because I have always tried to be inclusive, but to be a better ambassador of things I was representing. And I think I did it. I think I definitely leapt forward as a writer. I can know I did because I can read it in reviews. People who read the first book, if they got through the first half of The Last Son, a lot of them, you could tell they really got into my story. And then a lot of them ended up picking up book two. And then they're surprised at the difference between book one and book two. I took everything that worked and I kept it, and I threw everything else out and just built on what worked. And I will never regret that because I can see that readers appreciated it.
Well, and I think the way that you did it also, it came through to me as growth of like Rune and Brand having growth as well. Like, I don't know, it wasn't anything like I can put my finger on, but it just also seemed like two young men, maybe with some biases, that were kind of growing. And they do grow throughout the entire series for different reasons. But the Rune and Brand in book one is not the one you get later on.
No, they grow. They absolutely do. The whole and I had a choice to make with book one. Book one had some really dark elements in it. I could have gone down that road and been a very grim, dark author where Rune was brooding about his past and he was fighting the people who attacked him, one after the other. Or else I could have done what I did, which is focus on the people who was gathering around him, and then using that as a different way to develop the characters and tell the stories from different perspectives of Rune growing as a person. And I never wanted this to be the story where Rune's power necessarily grew every book because that just is it's unsustainable after a while. I like the idea that he starts as a relatively powerful young man. He certainly levels up in a lot of respects, but the real leveling up in my story isn't his power, it's his family. It's the people around him. And that's what really makes him a powerful force later on, because he has people to protect. And he has people to watch out for him.
Yeah, and I have a hard time picking a favorite book. I always thought maybe it was book two, but I think to me it is more book three because it's like, oh, this person's here now, and this person's here now, and he's getting his life. Each book has things about it that are really great, but I think that's what I love the most.
That's my goal, that every book needs to be just, it doesn't need to be better, but I want it to be as good as the other books. I don't want a weak, if you ask me, the weakest book in the series is The Last Son because it was my first book, but I want all the other books to show that level of commitment for me as an author and to give something that readers, because every reader has a different character that I've noticed that they like, and I want to give them all something to cheer for in every book, one way or the other, but I certainly don't mind if people have favorites. I do.
Who is your favorite?
It really depends. I mean, Brand is a joy to write. Anything with Brand is, for all the dialogue that I have already pre-written, like when I sit down to write, like I write down Brand one-liners all the time. My entire outline for the entire series is well over 400,000 words by this time. It's insane. I mean, it's like 4 books worth of material. And like a good solid 10 to 20% is nothing but Brand one-liners. So he's fun to write. Ciaran is another one who'll just say whatever he wants to say. But I suppose Rune is my heart. Quinn is a very important character as well. Rune's the brain and the soul of the series. I think Quinn, in a respect, is almost like the heart of it. He's the one who really changed the story from grimdark to found fantasy. When I brought him in it brought Adam in from a different perspective, a really loving, family-based one, and that helped change the entire series. But it's hard for me to say I have a favorite character. One thing I'll say is like I don't have a unfavorite character. There's no one who I hate writing. I really do enjoy the characters I've created.
A common theme is when people start, they are so surprised that Rune and Brand are not romantic. And I always say, well, hold on, keep listening. And I really do like the relationship that they have together. And it kind of evolves. I think of them, I don't know if this is just true or not, but of like queer platonic. Like it's always going to be Rune and Brand. And now, later on it's Rune, Brand, and Adam. And I like that their bonds, not just between Rune and Brand, are growing, but Brand and Adam. Is that a dynamic you always planned for, or what was it like writing all three of them?
Oh no, 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 no. In fact, I'll tell you something that not many people know about. There were three scenarios of what was going to happen with Rune. Do I give everyone what they wanted from the beginning and it's a long burn between Brand and Rune? I really ditched that idea in the beginning because I didn't want to say that I'm so happy with this queer platonic vibe between those two. I mean, they are the love of each other's lives. They've known each other since the crib. I mean, they're closer than lovers in a way. They're very comfortable touching each other and hugging and laying against each other, but they're not romantic. And that's not going to change in the sense of, I don't want to give away what the future of the story holds, but it's possible that you can have a relationship like that and it can be the core of an entire series, can be the core of an entire novel. There's something powerful about that. Romantic love isn't, the end all and be all of romantic fantasy. This sort of love is important too. Sort of love between family members and friends, and between mentors and mentees, that's important too. And I wanted to show all the different facets of love in my series. I got to say though, especially Adam and Brand and Rune. Well, Adam and Brand, I'm having so much fun with. I think that's the potential for stories in the future because their common connection is Rune, and yet they're finding that in protecting Rune, they're growing closer together. So, like, their body relationship is kind of fun to write. It's a new comic angle of their development together, their comfort with each other. But in a way, the three of them kind of different. Well, I told you that the two of like just having Brand and Rune was one option. The three of them you're looking at right now, that's obviously in the story right now, and building this idea of they lead Sun Estate. They are the alliance right now that are leading at the top of the alliance, and what that's going to mean and how they finally come together in a permanent formation. That's a story for books 4 and 5. By the end of 5, it's going to be very clear what's happened. If anything, I want to be very definitive about that. I'm not going to make people wait 10 books to find out, like, who Rune lays his head with, lays his head next to at night. But there was another point in the beginning of the series where it was called the Seven Chambers of Rune's Heart, where Rune had 7 potential suitors.
Oh,
7 potential suitors. And I still know some of those characters, believe it or not, in an early version of Last Song. Some of those were in that book. There was a whole other storyline that I ended up pulling.
I can't imagine anyone else.
It wouldn't have necessarily been like different characters, but things would have built along the way. And Rune would have added not so much family members, but more like marital alliance romantic partners. But that's not the direction the story necessarily went on. And the fun thing is, all of these ideas that I had that never made it onto the page, as far as I'm concerned, they're actually canon because Quinn saw them. Quinn saw potential futures of what it could all be. And Quinn even knows that there was that one time where the 7 chambers of Rune's Heart, like he remembers that. He used to saw moments where that could have possibly happened before what eventually happened. So I use Quinn as my way of like making the deleted content sort of real. It was just a timeline that never came to fruition.
I like that one. I always am curious what Quinn has seen and not seen, and how much he actually knows and doesn't know. I mean, I think it's alluded to that he knows a lot more than he lets on, and that's a big topic in the books, but
Yeah, I think that the book in particular, since he's lost some of his ability, I'm digging a lot more into what he does remember and how he's trying to make that useful information. So that'll be a big part of book 4 and 5 too. And also, I do like again, I talked about not wanting to cut extra content from the books. I do want to add interlude scenes with my teenagers because so much of what Quinn is struggling with in book 4 happens outside of Rune's attention span. Like Rune's not watching it because Quinn's not doing it in front of him. So I'd be losing a lot of material, including with Tavis, if I didn't have those just interlude scenes, not chapters, like just scenes, like 4 or 5 of them throughout the entire novel.
so you are a full-time author now, right?
Making my way. It's going to be a long pipeline, but I'm definitely now at least a part-time author. I left my full-time HR gig over last summer. I'm doing half-time consulting HR. But to get to the point where I'm really controlling a lot more of my own destiny as a writer, it's going to start right around book 6. But I've got to get through books 4 and 5 first.
What motivates you to write and keep going? I know you said the pandemic really has changed you. Like, what has kept you going?
Yeah, like I've definitely gone through some stuff recently where I had to examine what did happen to me. Like what did change with my brain during the pandemic. A lot of people talk about this, that their attention spans, maybe the reliance on doom scrolling. Like I do believe that someday we're going to look back and realize the doom scrolling that all of us are doing on our phones or iPads, that there was something exceptionally harmful about that. It took me so much to break my doom scrolling fixation. I've recently done it, actually. That was part of therapy, to be perfectly honest, or what I wanted to set out in the beginning of therapy. But I mean, I'm very honest that there have been a lot of things that have changed, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. But one thing that's always been consistent is I've just always wanted to be a writer. I've wanted to be a storyteller. When I watch stories or when I read books, like if I, sometimes like I feel that right a part of my brain just flares on, and it's impossible not to like just sit there and suddenly start spiraling off with stories in my own head. That's how I interpret stimuli in the world when I'm going through it. Like that's why my brainstorming note for the road trip novel was so thick, because I'll be driving in my normal life and something will happen and I'll be like, oh, Brand would not deal well with that. Brand would not have been happy if that person cut him off. And then the next thing I know, I'm creating this banter in my brainstorming notes for sequence on Brand driving in the road trip. So, I mean, it's just all around me all the time. But, as for the inspiration to keep on writing, I just want to tell this story so bad. When you know what's going to happen, the big moments in all books, some people would think that bores you and maybe you won't be interested in writing it because you've thought so much out. For me, I can't believe I'm finally getting to the moment when I can tell these scenes. Like, if you had told me when I first started writing Last Son that I'd be writing about that limo scene in the back of or the scene in the back of the limo at the end of the Eidolon, it's that book 3.5, like, that scene, I've been planning that scene for, like, years, 10 years, 10 years of brainstorming something, and I finally get the chance to write it. It's almost surreal.
And it had all of us gnawing on the bars of our enclosure. We're all like, could it mean? And it was such a good payoff as well.
It had to be something random. It had to be a random moment like that. And so, because of that, not everyone is reading the Eidolon, so not everyone knows that I've really given away a huge twist. But the point is, I haven't given it away to Rune, my main character. So it's kind of, for some readers have read the Eidolon and they know a twist in the series. So you're going to get to see kind of behind the scenes about how I carry that through this normal story when book 4 starts. But eventually, of course, Rune is going to find out as well, and that is a huge confrontation in the coming. So that is a huge, massive confrontation in the coming. That is going to be a pleasure to write. But I've always had to write a book from multiple perspectives, because there's what the reader knows, there's what the reader doesn't know, there's what Rune knows, there's what Rune doesn't know, there's what Rune doesn't want anyone else to know if he's being unreliable. And then when you add Quinn in the mix, there's so many different perspectives I'm always considering. Now the reader has two perspectives. I'm writing for the reader who knows and doesn't know that Rune is about to have a big secret bearing down his way.
He's one of the most unreliable narrators I've ever encountered, and I think it was you that said it somewhere that like book 1 is how did it go? One's what he doesn't want you to know.
Yeah, I remember I used to say that all the time. Book 3 was everything that Rune is keeping from the reader. Books 4 through 6 is Rune figuring out what's been kept from him. And then the last 3 books are just pure endgame.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. I've done that. I've really done that. I'm finally starting at the point in my series where the readers are really beginning to see. I did lay out some breadcrumbs. There were things that I hinted at from the beginning that you're not going to necessarily be able to draw the connections together into books 7, 8, 9, and 10. I really tried hard. That was one of the reasons I created the whole series before Last Son was even done, because I wanted to create a slow, steady payoff of secrets and reveals and breadcrumbs. I don't want any one secret necessarily to dominate the entire series. I don't want to toy with people that way, but I always want you to feel that you're learning something about the world, because there's so much more undiscovered that is planned.
Ugh, just having a fan moment over here. Okay, I'm done. So for themes, I feel like, there's the big ones. There's found family, there's healing. Are there any that you just are constantly revisiting or new ones you're exploring?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever given this answer before, but it's very current. Writing from Anna's perspective, because not necessarily from her point of view, though she might have some points of view. I'm not sure how the points of view are going to go with the interlude scenes, but Anna's still in the scenes quite a bit. And Anna is a growing young woman, and she's starting to realize what it's like to be. I mean, she has a scar on her face. Race doesn't really figure into Atlantis, not the way that the rest of the world does. So I want to be careful about that. But the scar is significant because people do look at that and notice it. She's incredibly powerful, and she's also a woman. And even in New Atlantis, there are gender issues between women and men. And I am not any of those things. So for me to represent Anna, I'm being very cautious and very careful. But I noticed that she's allowing me to give voice to some of my own grievous mistakes around gender issues. Like, she's able to point out, like, for instance, I'm writing a scene right now, I might post it on my Patreon soon, where some well-meaning older character says to Anna, "You'd be prettier if you smiled."
Mm,
And I just want Anna to crazy with that. I just want her to go nuts.
yep.
I was just thinking, like, it just hit me last night. I was watching the show where someone said something like, I'm like, you just can't win if you're a woman, can you? You're told from the beginning you have to smile at everyone. But if you smile at some people, they take it the wrong way, and that creates hardships, and they get mad that you smiled at them in the beginning, even though you're told to smile at everyone. Like, you can't win. And I want Anna to say that. Like I realized it, and the average woman would probably be like, "No shit, Sherlock. Yes, yes, that is the way that it is, and we have to deal with this." But I like that I have a character who's exploring my own biases and my own anti-biases or my own successes in overcoming some of my biases. And she's going to be a vehicle for that. So that's something I'm literally working on. I just worked on last night and I'm thinking I might get out there. And the one thing I love about my Patreon site is I have my highest tier. I call them my Scion tier, my Principality tier, and my Arcana tier. And my Arcana tier gets samples of writings that I may or may not post. I could throw it out there and say, like, should I keep this or delete it? So I'm going to throw it out there and see what they think.
Nice. That's awesome. And that's, like you say, a different avenue that you really haven't taken before. And again, it improves your craft.
I'd like to think so. I'd also like to think it improves me as a person.
I mean, we've talked a lot about, you write because you love to write. Is there something you hope to accomplish? Like, what do you want readers to take away from your books?
I don't think I need to accomplish any more than what I already did because readers are already telling me things that like reduce me to tears on a weekly basis. Like when you get comments from people in different parts of the world where they have a tough time even getting a hold of books with queer content and they talk about what it meant to them, or when people talk about how I helped them through the pandemic. Because I put my characters through the pandemic too. I'll never regret that because I was scared. Like, let's take that as an example. Like, I've already accomplished what I want to do in connecting with my readers because I've lived through those experiences already. I know what's happening. Like, when the pandemic started, I decided that I was going to create this meta series where I put my characters through the pandemic and I did snippets every day. It's still on my website. It's called Tales from the Quarantine. And I talked with Rune being, afraid and affair, like as powerful as he is, a small virus could destroy us. It was really interesting from that perspective to just focus on the human element of what it meant. And eventually it got so deep that I ended up building it into my series. It's not the same pandemic. It's not the same world. And it was over quicker. And Atlanteans found a way out of it almost much more quicker than the normal humans who didn't have access to magic. But the thing is, every day I would post one of those little clips. And there were people who followed me as I did that. And they said that I helped them get through the scare of the pandemic. I was helping myself get through it as well. But I think that was the first time I really saw how powerful this connection was I had with my readers and how much it meant to me. And if I could give that to people, if I could give them a sense of a healing escape, a place you can go where the whole point isn't to make you anxious, it's to make you feel better, to make you feel that no matter how much danger the characters are facing, they're going to be okay. They're going to get through it together. There is going to be possible loss, but there's also going to be family at every single turn. To share that with readers live as I was figuring it out, I already saw the value of it because people responded to me and sent me emails and texts, and I'm really blessed. I mean, I don't know what other people's writing journey is, but it's crazy that I have a shelf of things that readers made me, and it's stuff that I consider like heirloom quality goods in my house now.
That's like the ultimate author experience, I think. I don't think you can hope for much more.
No, and I don't need to grow any. I'm perfectly happy growing at this pace. I was very much grassroots. I grew not because of my publishing house. The first publisher I had, I think it was Prometheus, they did a great job. They had really great marketing and PR, and they sent my books to awards. But within a distressing amount of time, the rights to my story were sold to another publishing house. And this publishing house is a lot more no frills. There's really, they're not doing much to grow me, at least from my perspective. And where I have grown is because I reach out and I do podcasts and I reach out to readers on social media, but it's the readers, them taking the book and saying, "This is not good. I need someone else to read this so I can talk to them about this." And they hand the book to their friend. I had Patricia Briggs come up to me. Patricia Briggs is like one of my heroes. Literally, what she's done with the Mercy Thompson series is like, she is just an amazing grand dame of urban fantasy. And for her to say, I thought she was being nice when she read my book. And I'm like, oh yeah, oh, that's good. Authors say that to each other. Sure, I read your book. But she's like, and she finally grabbed me the second year I met her. This is the second time at Dragon Con. We've been on panels together. She goes, "No, Keith, I read all of your books." And then I gave them to my sister, and my sister read all your books. And then she gave them to my niece, and my niece has read all your books. That was a moment. I mean, that was a moment.
That was kind of I made it kind of a feeling.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Like, if I grow that way because people pass books to their friends and their friends of friends and their family members, that's how I want to grow. Slowly, I know my base, I know what they like, I'm very attuned to their needs. I'm not changing stories because of them. I'm a little bit worried about what happens the next two novels. People have a lot invested in the romantic side of my series, and I want to be really sensitive in how I handle that. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm happy the way I'm growing. I'm happy with what I've achieved as an author. Everything else after this, I'm hoping, is just more of the same. I don't need anything special because special's already been given me.
This is when Bran tells us to frig off with the mushy shit because, oh my gosh, he would hate hearing us talk about him like this.
But it's a joy seeing Brand get a little bit mushier too. Just a little bit, but his interaction with the family is, I think one of the good thing about having a big cast of characters is there are times where I'm like, okay, Rune's good. He's developed. Like I don't really need to do anything more with Rune in this book, but man, Max and Brand are going to get a lot of development. That's in book 4. I think Max and Brand get a lot of time. Max in particular is a character who he's a strong secondary character, but he always seems to get shunted off page when the action is happening. But book 4 is his first real arrival on the as a fighting force in the next book.
Well, and Rune says that too. You've been waiting, you've been in the background, you've been doing so good.
And Rune actually notices that in the next book. It's actually, I think, one of my favorite scenes when he's just so proud of Max when he sees how solidly Max has been developing over the course of these years.
So you talked a little bit about some urban fantasy authors that you really enjoyed. Are there any stories that inspire you?
Again, my books are really fixed in like the 2010s. 2020s was not a good writing or reading year for me. So a lot of my recommendations are dated by like a decade at this point. But I mean, all the beginning greats like of urban fantasy, like I did, Laurel Hamilton was really important to me. I loved the Anita Blake books in the beginning, but she also decided at some point to take her series in a very erotic direction. And I mean, very like the latest books are completely different from the earlier books, and I'm all for that. Like as an author, like if you want to explore stuff like that, I still follow her books. I think she's wonderful. I love Patricia Briggs. Alona Andrews is extraordinary. I mean, the Kate Daniel series is just phenomenal. Charlene Harris, I've always read. I love the Rivers of London series. Still actively reading that. I've always read Dresden. Dresden was one of the earlier books, but a lot of the most powerful examples of urban fantasy I read are definitely by women. I'm trying to think if there's any others I want to share off the top of my head. Those are some good examples, though. David Sladen. If I want to like start using more those, it's funny, the examples I gave, it says a lot about my writing that those came from the 2000s, 2010s, and they definitely have a lot of those books have gay themes, but they're not necessarily queer content. So it's great to see a lot more queer content edging into the urban fantasy space. And like David Sladen is just a great example of that. He's just fantastic. I probably should spend more time promoting the queer content as well. I always go back to like my formative days, but it was a joy when we hit that point where like you're able to see the urban fantasy through the gay perspective. There's so much more out there now.
Yeah, it was really great talking with David, and he had a lot of really good insights as well. And I kind of told him, when I think of him, I think of you, and when I think of you, I think of him. You guys, your books aren't similar really, but I don't know why. I think of one. And
Yeah, we I think we had the same agent for a while even. He's a great guy. I would love to be on panels with David. I hope that I've never really met him in person. I want to meet him in person and do panels with him. I think he and I would be great on panels, but he's a great guy. He really is. Just like salt of the earth type guy.
do you have any advice for up and coming authors?
Stick with it. Read a lot about what the world's like now when it comes to publishing. It's a tough business. I mean, a lot of publishing has got very corporation like. If you're not with the top 5 publishers, you don't necessarily get the resources that authors did 20, 30, 40 years ago. You don't get the advances it's a whole different world. You really got to understand like what are the different options available between, it's not just like traditional publishing versus self-publishing. There's a whole spectrum in the middle, like what I'm trying to do. I have a good relationship with Audible, and Josh Hurley, the narrator, is phenomenal. I would never want to lose him. He's too important to my series. I cherish that relationship, and they do a good job funneling readers towards me. To work with like a special publishing house or a book service on just the hardcover and the paperback, I would love that. For them to take care of like doing a really good job on like a limited edition hardcover and then a trade paperback. And then I always want to control the ebook. That's my plan for the last half of the series. I want to control the PDF. That is my slice of the pie. And there's so much about that I could not have done in the beginning that I can do now. But just stick with it. If you're a writer out there, number one, don't stop writing. The biggest mistake is like you have this one book you want to write, you're done writing it, and then you spend the next 5 years trying to sell it. You should always keep on writing because you're getting better and your ideas are getting more and more marketable. Your skills are increasing. Keep on writing. Even when you're trying to sell book 1, start writing book 2, whatever that might be. And then look into the different options between self and hybrid and full traditional publishing. Try going the route with an agent, but understand that's not the only route that that exists anymore. In part because of just the way the industry operates, the paths aren't there, so we had to create new ones. Writing should always be a joy. You can never, you can't chase fame the way you can with some other professions or industries. It takes actual work. It takes grit. It takes blood and sweat. It takes a lot of powerfully uncertain moments in front of a blinking cursor. But you do it because you love doing it, and you hope that you find the audience the way that I find my audience.
I like that. That's some like a good advice. Very inspiring to me. And like you say, you just have to keep going.
You do. And I would have never thought there were as many ways as exist at this point in my career than what I see. I mean, I definitely wish I could go back in time and do things differently, but this was part of my learning. This is why I have the learning I have. So I can't regret it. But I wish the same to all of you to just keep writing, do what you love, and then just learn the rest of the business. You'll trust me, with knowledge comes options. So much of my success is due to Josh Hurley and his audio narration. I know because he's brought in a lot of people who bought the paperback, or the PDF started with the audio version, or they keep on downloading the audio version. I mean, I really can't take that for granted ever. So I do always try to be very respectful and grateful for that. The only other thing I could think in the future might also be like a full cast recording. I don't know how that works, but I've heard like, there are different people who you have a traditional audio version and then you have something with more of a cast. I might be interested in exploring that someday. I'm not sure how that works though. I'd have to do a lot of research.
So I love his narration. He really brings a lot to the series. Like I've read all the books once, but then ever since then, it's just I listen to them over and over, and I read them, in his voice. Like it's that much of a performance.
I give him and Micah Epstein, the cover artist, so much credit for helping create the identity of my series.
Yeah, and the cover artist is wonderful as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing the next cover. I can only imagine what that's going to be like.
Yeah, the Mystic Caravan it's a quiet type of cover, but it does have Adam and Rune and Brand on it, which I'm really thrilled with. I'm excited about the next one. I pay for the covers. My publisher, like I said, my publisher was very no frills. They took art in-house and they were going to do in-house art. But Micah, the artist who did the first two covers, I could not lose that. I just know you can tell when a cover artist has done something that is successfully driving people to your book. No desire to mess with that formula. So I pay for the covers now, which gives me a lot more flexibility and like creating posters and stuff with them afterwards and do promotional stuff on my own because I pay for them. They're under my rights. But Micah, I do have a relationship with. He will keep on doing the books. So we're already talking about not just what the fifth book is going to look like, but also he's going to do a cover for the early adventures of Rune and Brand, a new offshoot series that I'm going to do on my Patreon site.
That's awesome.
He is a wonderful Micah Epstein. His name is, by the way, for those people out there. He is an exceptional cover artist and artist.
So do you have any updates for the next book, like a projected kind of? I know you said you're close to the end.
I'm close. I'm trying so hard. I would love to say I'm done within the next couple of months, but I'm writing again. There's a lot of possibilities of things that might happen if I can get the book out by next fall and next spring. Like, I really want to see it out in 2026. That's my goal. I know how long it takes Amazon to turn books around. My French publisher's all excited about the next book as well. I don't know about how it works with my publishing house, the main one, Pyre, Start. They need to determine when it could go out, but the key thing is I need to get the manuscript to them. We need to get through the editorial process, which thankfully has always gone relatively quick because I tend not to turn anything over until I'm very, very satisfied with it. But you should start hearing more buzz about the book in the next couple of months. I think I'll be entering the beta phase of the reading for a quick beta phase for a month or two. But yeah, I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Nice.
I wish I could give you a date. I just can't. But there will never be a 3-year gap in novels. The next outline, well, especially for book 5. Book 5 was originally book 4, so the outline is what's going to happen.
Gives you a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
I bet you it feels good to be back.
It does. And back in a routine again, and knowing I can devote more time to it with this half time. There was a bit of after spending my entire life in a 9-to-5 job, there is a realignment that goes on in your brain. I had this initial spurt of energy and then a period of what am I going to do now? Terror. And now I'm actually in the productive era of that experience. But yeah, and then as soon as I'm done writing book 4, and they start making plans for getting that published and I work with editorial, I'll start writing the early adventures of Rune and Brand and getting that out there as serial adventure on my Patreon site. That's important to me too, because I really do want to share some new content. And to do an early adventures when Rune and Brand were young, they'd moved into Half House for the first time, they just left the employ of Lord Tower and have their own assignments. That's a period of time which is really relevant to the present as well. I'm kind of excited to tell those stories. So I'll have some fresh content to share with readers before the next big book comes out, but I am hoping the next big book comes out in 2026.
Awesome. Well, where can listeners find out more about you?
kd-edwards.com is my website. I do have a KD Edwards Patreon site, which is really important to me. That's like the everything that goes on social media kind of all springs from there one way or the other. That's where I live, on my Patreon site. There you can get a free membership as well, just to get announcements and things like that, or else there are different tiers if you want to actually get content. And I also have a publicist who keeps like me on social media pages that I've never touched before. So I'm starting to get like a TikTok and Instagram presence, and Blue Sky I'll do on my own. But if you see stuff from me on like Facebook or Instagram, that's a PR person I work with. She usually signs at PR Arcana. And yeah, those are the quickest ways to find me. The Patreon site, even with the free membership, lets you send direct messages to me as well. So if you ever do want to reach out to me, that's the way to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. This has been really fun. I'm really excited. I just got done really listening to this, and I really should listen to something else, but I kind of.
Well, you made my morning. Thank you. This has been a huge ego boost. So I'm hoping I go off to write after this.
Yes, well, if nothing else, you'll be thinking about them.
Well, thank you for this. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week with more Right Here, Right Queer.